With the Aquilons diving in from the skies to nab objectives from your enemies, the Vespid Stingwings, who are the opponents in the Kill Team set, have also got some updated rules to bring to your games of 40k. Now, obviously the Tau did get their codex release earlier this year where they got some new rules there, but this is just a bit of a further updated datasheet and you will be using these rules rather than the ones in the codex. So let's swoop over to them and see just what these guys can now do. They aren't hugely different, they keep the same base profile as they have previously had. They've got a solid 12-inch move with toughness 4 alongside a 4-up save and 1 wound, so they're still not particularly resilient, and with a leadership of 7+ and an OC value of 1, they are still not really the best at reliably taking and holding objectives and also avoiding any potential battle shock. They are, however, quite cheap at 65 points for 5 or 130 points if you decide to double them up to a unit of 10, and they can be fairly mobile, not only with that 12-inch move, but they do have the added utility of Deep Strike to really let you get them exactly where you need them, much like the Aquilons, to try and kill off a few enemies, to try and help you grab an objective, or just maybe take out a misplaced character or screening unit if the enemy does mess up their deployment or their movement phase. They get even more utility in terms of their movement though with their updated rule, which is airborne agility. This still allows you to pick them up and put them into strategic reserves, but it has now been changed slightly so that it's done at the end of the opponent's turn instead of at the end of your movement phase. So it's now got a lot more useful, being able to very quickly put them into reserves and then bring them back down again almost immediately as you go into your subsequent turn, rather than potentially having to wait your entire opponent's turn before they could hit the battlefield again. So that little change alone has made them much more useful and given them a lot more scope for going from objective to grab them from you or try to put some shooting right where you need it to be as quickly as possible. Their own unique bit of war gear is called the Oversight Drone, and this is a useful little tool that basically just gives them ignores cover. It is only once per game, which is a fairly big drawback, but it can really help them to do that extra little bit of damage into opponents' units that are in cover to maybe help push them off an objective. Now, I personally don't think this would have been particularly game-breaking if they had given it to the unit all the time, just as an extra rule, but it is still a nice tool to have for that one particular phase when you absolutely need to kill an entrenched enemy unit, or at least do as much damage to them as you possibly can. This is a very good tool to have up your sleeve with the amount of cover that is in the game in 10th edition. In terms of the damage they can actually do themselves, they all come base with a neutron blaster, which is actually okay as far as weapons go. It still only hits on 4s, but it's 2 shots at 18 inches and is strength 5, -2 AP and 2 damage, which is a fairly nice profile. It means even a minimum squad of 5 can kill off just over 2 Marines in a single volley. So for 65 points, I personally don't think that's terrible. It does mean that, of course, a full 10-man squad with these could, in theory, kill almost an entire 5-man Marine combat squad, but they do actually also get some options if you decide to take 10. If you do go for the full 10, you can bring 1 with a Tau Flamer, 1 with a neutron grenade launcher, and 1 with a neutron rail rifle. Now the Flamer is, as you would expect, D6 shots that auto hit, and they are strength 4, 0 AP and 1 damage. The grenade launcher is D6 shots with blast and anti-infantry 3+, and is strength 4, -1 AP and 2 damage. That generally nets you about a 60% chance of insta-killing a Marine, so it's arguably not as good as the blaster, but against those bigger squads of 20 boys or hormagaunts or whatever, it could do a lot more work than the blaster could. The rail rifle is arguably the best of the options. It brings you only 1 shot, but that shot is strength 10, -4 AP and a flat 3 damage, and has devastating wounds. So that is genuinely a scary profile, and whilst math hammer wise it does work out to be ever so slightly worse into a toughness 4 3-up save Marine, thanks to only being 1 shot and the flat 3 damage being overkill, into things like aggressors or inceptors or even some light vehicles, this could be a very worthwhile addition if you are bringing a unit of 10. But that's where the problem is, because I think if you could bring this in a squad of 5, just having that extra special heavy weapon in a unit of 5 could be a very worthwhile thing to bring to add a bit of anti-light vehicle or anti-aggressive firepower. But in the grand scheme of things, I think despite all the options, going for a unit of 10 is a mistake. Because yes, they can potentially, with slightly above average rolling, take out a 5-man marine unit in a squad of 10, it is costing you 130 points. And for me, the play with Vespid is 1 or 2 small, min-sized 5-man squads that can just drop in, unleash a decent amount of firepower for their cost, for that cheap 65 points, and maybe kill a few infantry, push a few units off objectives, and then just jump up in the air and do it all over again in your next turn on another objective to help mop up units that maybe the rest of your army has already shot at and killed most of them. The issue with going with that 10-man squad is that these guys aren't super durable, so even taking a unit of 10, they can die very, very quickly, and of course, being in a unit of 10, it's much harder to find those sweet deep strike locations without being screened out too much, so you want these guys to be easy to deep strike in, you want them to be easy to hide if you need to, and you want them to generally be as disposable as possible, so they can be super, super useful, but spending 130 points on 10 of them just doesn't add enough more for me than bringing 2 units of 5, so I would personally rather bring 2 or even 3 units of minimum squad 5 instead of just the one bigger unit of 10 if I was running them. And then, as I said, you can just drop them where you need them, kill off a few infantry models, nab some objectives, pick them up again, do it again, turn after turn after turn, and just keep them really slippery and evasive whilst not giving your opponent this bigger 10-man target to really aim down and focus down. So I think they're good overall. I do quite like them. I think they are a good output unit for their cost. I just think going for 10 of them is a mistake, and instead the 5-man squad is where you should be looking. But as always, what do you make of this unit, and do you plan on bringing any of them in your Tau lists? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.